Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Ahmed Lithey, the international strategic consultant and writer. Thank you very much once again for being with us tonight. We were speaking about the efforts of Egypt and Egypt assessing the situation nowadays in the region and the Middle East. Why do you think, in your opinion, that Egypt has a strong emphasis on dialogue as the only means of ending the current conflict?
Well, if we look at the current conflict, what is going on? Iran is being hit almost in a very chaotic way. We see a lot of civilians going down, and we see them retaliating to the Gulf states, which are not really involved in that conflict, but the only reason, not that is acceptable, but the justification, this is what we call a symmetric war,
yes,
in the sense that there is a very, very strong side and so much weaker side, and the difference is huge between the US power and the Iranian military power. So the solution in the mind of the Iranian leadership was to attack the Gulf states, not to attack them per se,
yes,
but to cause a major shortage in their capability to export oil, and to use this as a lever to pressure the American economy and the American administration. That is the link. It's so sad that our brothers and sisters in the Gulf have to go through this.
yes.
They are not involved, they have not even facilitated. Even Oman, who was the advocate of Iran and was just until the day before the war, were organizing and mediating and playing diplomacy between both sides, were hit with several whether drones or missiles. And the same for the United Arab Emirates, the same for Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. So it is very sad. So if that goes on, then everybody loses. Iran will continue to be hit. More of infrastructure, more of superstructure will be destroyed in Iran. The Arab states, unfortunately, will continue to be exposed. The U.S. economy will worsen and will suffer. So there is no solution.
Yes.
I mean, militarily speaking, there is no solution. They have to sit and agree. Any negotiation has to contain some compromise and some sacrifice from both sides. I mean, it's almost impossible for somebody to go and have everything he needs from any negotiation on the expense of the other party. So I think this is what Egypt is trying to do now. And again, speaking from a negotiation strategy point of view, that war, obviously the US was not happy with the position that the Iranians have taken in the latest negotiation. So that war started in the hope, in the mind of the Americans, to change the relative position and the negotiating position from the adversary, and they answered back with this. I personally, that's
yes,
personally, and of course I have no access to any classified data, but from the open sources, the statement that Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of Foreign Affairs, made was actually quite alarming to me, in the sense when he said that almost the opening remarks of the Iranian party into their last negotiation, which was in Geneva, was that they could have put together about 11 nuclear bombs in a matter of 10 days. I don't know if this is true or not, but
yes,
this was on media, on open air. If that were true, then in my personal opinion, I think Iran has made a strategic mistake to position themselves like so, because in a way they would have cornered the US. If you tell him within 10 days I can have the capability of a nuclear bomb, then you've put him in a corner that he had no other solution but to hit you within the 10 days.
Yes.
And in my mind, that would have been a mistake. I understand also why they did it, to show that they have leverage, they have something to negotiate over, but that was too stressful, and from the US experience, they know nothing can be negotiated in 10 days. So now, I think the US will be more than ever insisting on total stoppage of all nuclear activities by Iran, understandably so.
Yes.
Because we've seen the Iranian missiles reaching Israel, and if they had the nuclear capability, one of these missiles could be nuclear. And the US will never allow this. So again, we go back to square one, and the only solution and the only way out of this crisis is not further escalation, yet it is just through diplomacy and getting to an agreement where each side will have to compromise and sacrifice something to be able to meet halfway top of it.
Dr. Ahmed, you mentioned a very important point, which is that our brothers and sisters in the Gulf, they had nothing to do with this conflict, nothing to do with this war.
Yes.
And we have seen those statements made by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the visits by President al-Sisi to the Gulf states over the past week, to the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and then Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, meeting the leaders of the GCC countries and sending a message of support and solidarity. How do you see the importance of President al-Sisi being there in the Gulf and stating such a message of solidarity and support?
I think it's extremely important, and I think President Sisi, maybe in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, almost like 10 years ago, has spoken about the importance of having a unified Arab force. And I don't think that that proposition was, let's say, adopted by most Gulf nations. I think today they understood, after what we all saw, that the US as a priority has obviously its own well-being, including their economy, and number two is Israel. US have moved military assets from their bases in the Gulf, which were supposed to be there to protect these countries, have moved them to Israel to support Israel. And I think now the reasoning and the proposal of His Excellency President Sisi has become very clear. We'll see. This war, obviously now we have to put the fire down and the war has to stop. But I think many things will change as learnings that both the region and the conflicting parties have seen. And again, you don't have to be an aggressor to be attacked. I think this is a very important lesson that we've all learned in that war. Understandably, I fully understand. I don't agree with it for a second. I fully understand why it happened. But again, the Gulf states cannot live under the sword of this being repeated again. So there has to be like a long-term solution to that. And this is going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of discussions, a lot of negotiations. But we cannot go back to where we were before the war, where these Gulf states could be exposed the way they were in this war.
Regarding the latest developments and the latest statements by the US President, by Iran, by the Israeli Prime Minister as well, how do you see the possible scenarios that could be panning out in the region, in the Middle East, and the possible results of those scenarios?
If we look at the American position, and I'm very surprised. I lived in Iran for a while, and they're very, very nice people.
Yes.
The idea of the American president asking the Iranians to surrender, I'm sorry to say this is a huge failure in his intelligence, and not his personal intelligence, but his intelligence services.
Yes.
Because they should have explained to him that the Iranians would rather pass rather than be than consider even something like surrendering. That's not an option. At the same time, the Iranians need to accept a little bit of other solutions and need to consider the development of their country. Iran is a very rich country, is a very big country, has a lot of educated people, and it is very sad and disheartening, especially for somebody like me who lived there for a while, to see the current situation and to see some of the places that were absolutely beautiful, to see them destroyed. Mm-hmm. So I think there need to be a focus on the rebuilding the country after this war, and also to understand from the American side that there are ways, and that's what's causing actually a lot of issues in the negotiation. They negotiate in two different ways.
Yes.
The Iranians are very, very good negotiators, and the Americans are, but just they negotiate in totally two different ways, and this is why they cannot see eye to eye in many negotiations. And this is where the role of a mediator, Egypt, comes in, and to step to try to kind of translate and make them talk to each other, or get the messages through, and hopefully we'll be able soon to get to a peaceful solution out of this war.
Yes, the international strategic consultant and the writer, Dr. Ahmed Lithey. Thank you very much for being with us.
Most welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
And this brings us to the end of the daily debate for tonight. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.